It's time to check in with Doc Rob and the Concierge for Better Living. We take a real, raw, inside look at healthier living while sharing great ideas and improvements for a better quality of life. The Concierge for Better Living will help informed, intrigued, and interested listeners like you make better choices for yourselves and your loved ones. CannabisRadio.com proudly presents The Concierge for Better Living with your host, Doc Rob.
Hello and good day. This is Doc Rob, your concierge to better living here on CannabisRadio.com. I'm very excited again today to have a wonderful guest. I want to welcome Mr. Ethan Ruby, CEO and founder of Theraplant. Welcome to the show, Ethan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Doc. Thank you very much for having me on.
It really is my pleasure. I think that a lot of times I've been doing a lot of conferences and trade shows and a lot of this cannabis business. Theraplant, as far as I understand, was the first medical marijuana company or dispensary or license in Connecticut. Tell me what's a little bit of background on Theraplant.
So Connecticut had a new set of rules, one of the first that really put a patient focus in front and had a mandatory laboratory test from an independent third party stand between whatever was produced at the manufacturer and ultimately what the patient ingests through various delivery systems. That very strict regulatory framework was something that I was very, very interested in. And my partners and I had put in a submission to produce and process medical marijuana in Connecticut. Our company, Theraplant, was selected with the highest score of all the 16 applicants. They selected 4 producers and 6 dispensaries for the state of Connecticut. It is not a vertical integration market, so all of those companies are separate entities. And the 10 companies that are representing the medical marijuana in Connecticut have been up and running for just about a year now. Awesome.
But you didn't start in Connecticut, right? I mean, this wasn't your first foray into the industry. I believe you lived in Colorado and saw that. But I want to get to that. But before that, I just want to back up because, as I was going to with conferences, there's a lot of business conferences and there's a lot of money to be made, this green rush. But I think one of the reasons why I wanted to talk with you today and one of the things that drew me into your company was your story and that this is not just about making some money in big business. This has a personal connection to you. I could tell your story, but I'm sure it's better if you you said it probably more than once or twice to summarize it in the best possible way, if that's possible.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor. I'm happy to share my story. Unfortunately, my story began in this regard about 14 years ago where I was a pedestrian in a crosswalk, walking across a New York City street with the walk sign. A driver ran a red light, hit another car in the intersection, and those 2 cars that were now pinned together spun and hit me while I was walking in the crosswalk. We had a very devastating injury, in and out of rehab settings I was actually in an ICU for 6 months and then in an inpatient rehab setting for 6 months after that. I had my spine broken at the T6 level. So I've been confined to a wheelchair ever since. I was 25 years old at the time. And since then, I have lived my life in excruciating pain with several other side effects that have plagued my daily life. But I have survived this injury, and I have made my life a meaningful and significant life by putting all of my professional skill sets and intelligence behind showing that this medicine can be helpful. A friend of mine suggested medical marijuana into my recovery, a few years into my recovery, and it had a profound effect. It did help, and it was able to replace some of the other harsh medications that were currently being prescribed to me. That experience led me to want to get more involved in the industry, and at the time, Colorado was one of the bedrocks of this emerging industry. It was a little bit like the Wild West, certainly, and that's been referred to many times, but the industry itself was really emerging there. So I relocated my entire family, was in Colorado, was working with a friend of mine that I was doing real estate. He was operating a medical marijuana company at the time. I was never an employee or worked at a company because Colorado actually has a very strict 2-year residency requirement before you're allowed to own a operation there. So we obviously kept within all of the legal guidelines. But I became close to the industry, learning about it as much as I could, and took that skill and education and brought it to Connecticut. My partners there in Colorado that were running that business believed in our mission and relocated to Connecticut to help establish Theraplant when we were selected to win the license. So yes, this journey has been a long one. This journey has been a personal one. And as far as the business of this goes, this is a emerging industry. There's going to be money to be made in this industry, but I am certainly in this for the long haul. We have invested millions and millions of dollars, and the return on capital is not going to be seen for several years. But we're investing in this medicine. We're investing in the science behind it. We're hoping to be here for decades to come and being a true steward of this industry as it's emerging.
Yeah, and that's again, appreciate you sharing the story for those that don't know about Theraplant or your history, your background. And, I applaud you for getting, back up and making something out of this, unfortunate circumstance and turning around and still making a quality life, looking for the best ways. And I'm sure you went through the gamut of pharmaceuticals and pain meds and things like that to try to alleviate. It's amazing finding a plant that works so well, and then, of course, turning around and trying to help so many others. I really do applaud you. I have a really good friend that I grew up with that had an accident in college and, also became paralyzed, and he also has turned it around and does marathons, the Special Olympics marathon. He does all this great stuff. He helps, does motivational speaking, all these positive ways. And, people take a lot of things for granted. And with my concept of concierge to better living, everyone wants to compare themselves to other people. And I'm always like, well, forget about yesterday. Where are you today? And can you continue to try to have a better tomorrow? And at the end of the day, that's pretty much all we can do is stay focused on the now and aim for a better tomorrow. And I really do, respect and appreciate you, what you've done. And again, I think the key is you're just getting started. I think that's where, the big key is. I think you don't have a quick, flash in the pan idea here in this cannabis industry. You're going in for the long haul, and I really like that too. It's awesome.
Well, thank you very much. I think, the last step in recovery is what now? What are you going to do with your life now? Yes, it's diminished. Yes, it's difficult. Yes, you're in pain, but how are you going to live your life from here on out? And I was a psychology major at the University of Pennsylvania and was fortunate enough to study under Martin Seligman, who is the father and almost pioneer of modern day positive psychology. And what you learn from those clinical studies and what we've learned from that field of discipline is if you want to have a productive life, if you want to have a meaningful life, the best way to achieve that is to use what you're good at to help other people. So my physical condition, my personal existence is a very, very difficult one. But I have literally been able to survive this injury by making my life more than about just my life, by dedicating myself to helping people and this is the plant. This is the medicine that I have now jumped into full on to be that responsible steward, to show that done correctly, this is something that is going to be good for any state, whether you need the medicine or not. This is jobs. This is taxable revenue. This is another tool in doctors' arsenals that is non-lethal and non-addictive. It's illegal in this country because there are no studies. There are no studies because it's illegal. That is a ridiculous cycle that is about to end, and we are in the middle of that tipping point right now. And it's very, very exciting for me to be part of if we look back over history, this will be a blip on the radar and maybe a couple lines in Wikipedia. But this transition, we are living in the middle of that transition right now, and it's a very exciting time.
You are exactly on point. That's why I'm excited about this. And with that, let me transition to our first break, and we'll be right back. This is Doc Rob, your concierge for better living. My guest, Ethan Ruby from Theraplant. We'll be right back after this brief message.
The concierge for better living will continue in a moment.
Ganjapreneur.com, your guide to the cannabis business world. Ganjapreneur.com is a comprehensive resource for cannabis professionals and entrepreneurs. Download the Ganjapreneur app on your smartphone or tablet to catch up on cannabis industry news, scroll through our daily job listings, and learn about successful cannabis companies, executives, and investors. Ganjapreneur.com, helping Ganjapreneurs grow.
MJWellness.com, the largest medical marijuana community in the world. Connect with thousands of patients, doctors, industry leaders, and businesses through shared personal experiences along our worldwide network. Discover new therapies and benefits with content tailored to you. Come grow your network on MJWellness.com. You're not alone. Your wellness matters. Learn, live, and thrive. Check out MJWellness.com today.
Chronicling the latest cannabis industry news and headlines.
Well, with 4 states with tax and regulate and the District of Columbia.
The state of cannabis.
Oh my God, it's refreshing. We have people that generally wouldn't speak on behalf of cannabis for fear of retribution, fear of losing your practices, fear of many of those things, and find ourselves in a place that we finally can.
Bringing you fact-based news and views and keeping listeners on the pulse of what's happening in the industry today. The state of cannabis. On demand anytime, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Let's check back in with Doc Rob and the concierge for better living, only on CannabisRadio.com.
And we're back. Doc Rob, your concierge for better living. Ethan Ruby, CEO, founder of Theraplant, is my guest today here on CannabisRadio.com. We're just hearing Ethan's story before the break. It's amazing, turning something very unfortunate into something that's going to help so many people. And, you know, speaking that you've been in Connecticut, you've been working this field, pioneering it in the state. What are some of the, I know you get testimonials, I'm sure, all the time. You get people saying thank you so much. But what are some of the health conditions or things you've seen, people, maybe some of the, not names obviously, but some of the stories that really have touched you or you've seen significant, you know, justification to this plant becoming mainstream medicine again?
Yeah, I've started to, right from the beginning, I started spending time in the dispensaries themselves where they were serving the patients. And, you know, I would spend a couple hours in a dispensary talking with the owners and meeting patients coming in. And I would always have one or two or several patients come to me and literally fighting back the tears or in tears, thanking me for being able to provide a medicine that has given them relief. People telling me, you know, I wish that this was around when my mother or my grandmother or my grandfather was going through their treatment because I know it would have helped them. You know, you hear these stories and I take them back to the workers at the facility so that they understand and hear about the people that they're helping. And all of my employees that are working on a day-to-day basis at the facility hear these testimonials and hear about the medicine that they're making that's truly helping people's lives. You know, in Connecticut, you know, the approved conditions are cancer, glaucoma, Parkinson's disease, MS, epilepsy, Crohn's disease, PTSD, and a few others. I have seen this help, the testimonials come back for all of these conditions. I would say the PTSD and dealing with the veterans has been one of the more wonderful conditions that I've seen this have a positive effect. My understanding of the endocannabinoid system, which I'm still just getting an education on, there are receptors all over our body specifically designed for the medicine that this plant can produce. That means that this plant has been part of human evolution since humans have been evolving. And the mechanism inside of the brain that triggers with PTSD issues seems to have a direct positive effect when cannabinoids in different profiles are introduced into a person's body. That positive effect is something that I think really should be studied and investigated more and more. We have soldiers that are defending this country and giving their lives to protect our way of life. Treating them and taking care of them when they come home should be an absolute priority for every state and our federal government.
I am totally with you on that. And it's shocking to me that recently in the last week or so, Colorado, I'm sure you saw, denied adding PTSD to their list of medical conditions. And it was somewhat shocking based on even the military presence in Colorado, in general with the Air Force and so forth. I mean, I'm sure you were shocked. And, it's interesting. I'm working on a book, and it's not all about cannabis, but it's about culture and perspectives. And I said back in the 60s and 70s, I think the whole country was suffering from a form of PTSD based on exposure to the war via television and media that they'd never experienced before. And yet our bodies were kind of saying, help us cope with this stress. And we had this insurgence and this attraction without even knowing this subconscious, universal attraction to this plant to help us. It wasn't abuse. It was, hey, this is medicine that's growing in our backyard. Here you go. Help the people. And I'm glad you guys are in Connecticut, or at least able to help in that state with our veterans. And I do support all their efforts, whether I believe with the, or support the wars. I always support the veterans and the people fighting for our country for sure. You said something about.
Has been part of. I'm sorry, I was just going to say cannabis has been part of the physician reference manual for a very, very long time. It was taken out in the 1930s for political reasons, not for medicinal reasons.
Yeah, I mean that's how. I looked at it from 5,000 years old. There's text. There's Chinese texts and Greek, and from India. There's all this thousands of years, and then of course. The AMA, American Medical Association, had it in the pharmacopoeia, I think, into the mid-1940s before it was actually taken off. And, they look at all this as if it was so foreign and new. We didn't just discover it. This is, I guess, a rediscovery. But, the science, like you said before, very interesting. It's the research. They complain, there's not enough research, not enough science here. And yet, when we want to go do that research and create and identify the science, they said, no, you can't do that. So here we are handcuffed and limited. But I think, like you said, the tipping point has been reached. The genie's out of the bottle, and, cannabis is here to stay. The question being is, I think now it's who's going to have control. Is it the people or is it big corporations again? And that's some of the concerns that I'm sure you've seen, expressed. What are the laws as far in Connecticut about growing your own? Is that something that people have the access to do at all, or no?
No, they're not allowed. The home care method is not allowed under current law. Again, we're trying to legitimize a business, and at the end of the day, you do need strict laboratory testing. That is going to give patients the comfort that they know what is in their medicine. Not only do they know that it's not grown with any pesticides or other harmful additives, they know exactly what the chemical profile is of the cannabinoids in that medication, whether it's the raw flower or the extraction, which within the industry, we're all moving towards extraction. That is how you get a standardization of dosing. And now we're starting to see and being able to prescribe people, if you have a migraine headache or you have Crohn's disease, that's a different strain, that's a different cannabinoid profile than if you're trying to treat your cancer or your insomnia or your chronic pain.
Of course, yes. And that's what people say. That I get the call like at least once or twice a day, we have this condition, will this work for it? And I'm like, well, it doesn't work as, so linearly right now. There's still a lot of variables at play, but we are looking at, more use, gives more testimonial, more edification, and then we can kind of bring this down. When I first went to Colorado several years ago, and I visited a medical, pain center with cannabis, and one of the concerns I had was not only the plant that was how it was grown and pesticides and chemicals and so forth, which was definitely a concern, but even in the finished products, the edibles, for example, here we're trying to give someone medicine, and yet it's in a food form that has artificial chemicals, sweeteners, food dyes, and other things that are negative to our health. And at first I was shocked, that this is, how it is, but this is very big issue I find in the industry, is that medicine has a very definition still. What is that? And I think we need more regulation and quality control. Has edibles been a big industry or big, demand in Connecticut for you?
No, we think the edible market that we've seen is somewhere between 15 and potentially upwards of 25%. It's depending on the different locations, but it is not something that has been taking off. The extract certainly is something that people are becoming more aware of. You know, when you have a new industry, a new program coming into a state, traditionally the first few people through the door are people who have already been self-medicating. They already believe in the curative nature of this, and they've been getting it from their own sources. They're now looking to get it safely, legally from a dispensary. Those people are usually familiar with the raw flower. Extract is a relatively new delivery method for people. So there's certainly that education that is starting to take shape in the states that are coming online and across the country itself.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the people getting familiar with some of these oils and extracts and starting to learn a little bit more about the different cannabinoids and the profiles and even terpenes and how they play into it. You know, I've always been a believer in the vaporization. I'm a big vape guy. Long before we were vaping it with tobacco or e-cigarettes or even cannabis, I was looking at it vaping all these different plants and herbs because, again, to me, cannabis is just one of many great plants that nature has provided us as medicine to heal and to repair and to manage with life's day-to-day. People say there's a class of herbs called the adaptogens, and anyone listening, if you aren't familiar, I always recommend checking them out. This is maca, astragalus, rhodiola, holy basil, ashwagandha, ginseng. These are called adaptogens, and I believe that cannabis, while there may be one or two select compounds that have a psychoactive approach or a psychoactive effect, this is still just another adaptogenic herb that offers great benefits to us healthcare system moving forward into more plant-based therapeutics, hopefully. All right, we're going to take a quick break, our last break, and we'll come back, talk about where Theraplant's going in the future without giving too many trade secrets away, I'm sure. We'll be right back. This is Doc Rob, CannabisRadio.com, your concierge to better living. My guest today, Ethan Ruby, CEO of Theraplant. We'll be right back.
The concierge for better living will continue in a moment.
Your connection to quality cannabis insurance services is spelled K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R. That's Karcher Insurance. We have worked with ventures like cannabis for over 60 years. We're proud to represent over 50 companies with tailor-made Cannabusiness plans for owners just like you to insure your product, your plants, and your pursuits. K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R spells out their full-service insurance services ranging from commercial to bonds to personal, from life to health, and more. Contact the team at KarcherInsurance.com and let our experience work for you. That's K-A-E-R-C-H-E-R Insurance.com.
Contact Karen and the team at Karcher Insurance at 1-844-421-3560. That's 844-421-3560.
Cannabis Confidential with Dr. Dina. Candid.
I want to give you the inside story.
Captivating.
I want to introduce you to my kind and amazingly talented friends.
Compelling.
We get to meet some of the most amazing cannabis activists and warriors around.
Listen in as medical marijuana pioneer Dr. Dina shares never-before-heard stories, chats with cannabis insiders and celebrity friends, and provides invaluable perspective and insight into one of the fastest-growing industries in the world.
I want to share with you what was once confidential information. Let's expose the truth, discuss the issues, and learn the facts.
Cannabis Confidential, only on CannabisRadio.com.
Hi, I'm Montel Williams. Most of you know me as a talk show host, but I'm also an author, actor, single father of 4, avid snowboarder, and I'm also a medical marijuana patient. Living with multiple sclerosis, I'm in pain every day. Medical marijuana is my last resort, and it helps me when all other drugs have failed. If you'd like more information about medical marijuana, you can contact the Marijuana Policy Project at mpp.org or call 1-877-JOIN-MPP.
Let's check back in with Doc Rob and the concierge for better living, only on CannabisRadio.com.
And we're back. Doc Rob, Ethan Ruby, CEO and founder of Theraplant, making things happen for the cannabis industry in Connecticut, medical marijuana. So give me some of those highlights. I love these people that are breaking down the barriers, but not just doing it in a rebellious way, but in a very tactical, very scientific, very, on point, which I like, because so much of this industry is wild, wild west, and again, all about the green, and I don't mean the plant, I mean the money. Give me some of those highlights and those hallmark moments that you can look back and, it's just a blip and there's a lot more of Theraplant coming. What are some of those things that Theraplant really, what makes you proud? That's the main thing. It's your baby.
Well, you're exactly right. To do this correctly, you have to have a very good relationship with the various regulatory bodies. We have a great relationship with the Department of Consumer Protection here in Connecticut. We interact with them pretty much on a daily basis. Commissioner Harris is the one in charge of the program right now. He really understands a startup business, a startup industry, but 100% focused on patient advocacy and patient efficiency. We want, he cares about the patients getting the best medicine at the most affordable prices possible. And understanding that directive, it's very easy and wonderful for me to work with their department and him, because I too care about the patients first. And having that relationship, breaking down the barrier, you must do it with your regulatory body. You must do it with the state that you're going into or seeking to operate in. You absolutely cannot have an adversarial relationship where the industry will not be able to move forward. But some of the highlights that you were asking about Theraplant, we did have the highest scoring application of all the ones that were submitted. We were the first to market. We had medicine available to patients just over 6 months after we were granted a license. We served the entire population of Connecticut by ourselves for those first 3 or 4 months until the other companies came online. We were the first to offer the product in a pill form, in a standard dose pill form. We didn't go after making chocolate chip cookies or brownies. We went after making standard pill forms in various dosage. And we're also very proud that we were the first and one that continues to provide compassionate care. Every month, I deliver thousands of dollars of free medicine to each of the 6 dispensaries for people who can't afford the medication. I believe that, supporting that side of the industry is important. Not everybody can afford medication, but that does not mean that they should not have access to it. So Theraplant has been committed to providing that compassionate care, and we will continue to do so.
I love that part. I mean, the whole compassionate terminology, I'm sure I mentioned to you in the past, and definitely on my show, I work with the 501c3 nonprofit My Compassion, just returning from the Chicago Cannabis Conference that Navy Pier put on by My Compassion, and it's about the patients. There's so many conferences about the money and the business and the lighting and the buying this and that, but when it comes down to it, this should be about the people, about the patients, and we should get to the point where we can give this medicine to anyone that needs it. And the reality is there's so many that do. And I'm really, again, I'm super excited that you guys do such a support and social service. And it really is, because I go out there and help train doctors and help educate people. And, collectively, this is just the beginning. But if we are selfish and short-sighted, I think that this is where we'll crumble to, the big powers that don't really care about the people. They just want to care about the almighty dollar. So I really applaud you again on that as well. And, the pill form, I know you had mentioned to me before, you have a pure oil for vaping with no peg and no carriers. Like that to me is always another concern, just like the artificial sweeteners. Why bring a medicine in your body with a secondary ingredient that's harmful to your body? It doesn't make sense to me.
That's exactly right. And we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars and actually delayed a market launch, which hurt us as far as getting market share, because we wouldn't produce something. We would not put out something that had propylene glycol or PEG in it. So until we figured out a way to make a pure cannabis oil, Theraplant was not releasing any vaporization oil. We had pure extract that we released for people to do vaporization with, but the oil form, until we got it perfect with a CO2 extract, and again, this is the difference between people doing stuff at home or doing stuff in a regulated environment, we're using a pure CO2 gas. We're not using a butane. We're using something, as healthy as possible. We're making medicine for people.
That's great. Yeah, this is, again, just the beginning. I wanted everyone to get a little bit more insight and information on Theraplant. I know that whether, what you're doing is setting a standard, specifically in Connecticut, but I'm sure it's going to be looked upon by many others in many other states as they expand, as you expand, I'm sure. And I know it's coming from the heart, coming from personal experience, and out there to help so many other people, which is great. I really, again, there's a lot of companies I meet that I'm like, oh my God, how are you selling this product and going to sleep at night? And I'm sure, there's a lot of those out there, but again, there's several good guys and good companies. And Ethan, I just want to say you're one of them. And I want to thank you for today, for being a guest on the show. And, we'll definitely have more conversations. Keep me posted and we'll definitely stay in touch. Thank you so much for all you do.
Great. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you for putting together something like this that actually gets the information out there. The more factual information we get out there, the more this industry will rise to where it needs to be. So thank you for your contribution as well.
Oh, definitely. I appreciate that. My pleasure. This is Doc Rob, your concierge to better living on CannabisRadio.com, wishing you all the best in health and happiness.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast or redistribution without proper consent of CannabisRadio.com is prohibited.